So this is going to be a bit of a intense video, a little bit more potent than anything I've ever made on either channel. I've talked a little bit about serious subjects, but nothing that I would consider particularly emotional, which is what this video is going to be about. It's going to be about losing someone that you're close to, a loved one or a close friend. I personally do believe that I have had one of the most fortunate lives out of anyone I've ever met. Like the way that my life has unfolded, through very little fault of my own, things have just really worked out for me. I've definitely been a lot of terrible people throughout my life, but for the most part, I've had a decent go at things. But with that being said, I've also had, like anyone, a good bit of tragedy, and I've definitely lost more people close to me than I think anyone would like to, which I think that number starts at one, but we got a couple in a pretty short period of time. When I first moved to California, I lost a couple people close to me. And one of them, which is what this video is mostly going to be about, was my brother. He passed away April 3rd, 2019. And the reason that this is coming up, and the main reason that I'm filming this video, is I was listening to the song. It's called Two Wrongs Make a Right. And it's just like, it's by Mogwai. It's just an instrumental, and it always like digs up emotions. Like it always just like churns my insides and make me feel like very nostalgic. And I ended up kind of imagining the house that I grew up in, and specifically the basement. And in the basement, we had a television that had no sound, and that's the television that we would play video games on. And I remember very vividly my brother playing Zelda, and getting really far in the game. And I remember one time, I forget what he did. He like broke one of my toys or beat me up or something like that, and so I erased his game. And I just remember like how devastating that was to him. Like it was like such a gnarly shot to him. And I started thinking about that, and then that just really pulled me into this like, oh my God, like my brother, I'm about to be, he's my older brother, but I'm about to be as old as he was when he passed away. Very soon, he's no longer going to be my bigger brother. He's going to be my younger brother. Soon, I'm going to have lived longer than he has. I'm going to have more life experience in a way, time-wise, than he did. And specifically with my brother, he didn't have a lot of fortune in his life. He was sort of good at anything he did. Like he was definitely one of those assholes who were like, whatever he picked up, he could just crush it. Really smart, funny, clever, which is what I feel like everyone says about anyone who's ever passed away. But no, he actually really was like, when it came to like wit and stuff like that, he was on it. And but he got involved with bad stuff early on and went to a very scary place, and pretty much remained there the majority of his life, which made his passing that much harder for me to deal with, knowing that he had such a shitty go at life. It wasn't one of those things that I could be like, well, they live life to the fullest. Like, he got such a fucking bad hand, circumstantially and based on decisions that he made, that it's just like, it was really hard for me to come to terms with the fact that he has done everything that he would ever do. It's already done. No one's going to have another experience with him. He's never going to have another epiphany. He's never going to have another positive or negative experience in his entire life. My future friends and family, if I have a kid, are never going to know him. And that was really hard for me to wrap my head around. That was really the first thing that punched me in the stomach, because usually when you first lose someone, you sort of go into this weird numb state where it feels very, like you understand it and you're like kind of, it's on the tip of your tongue. The lump in your throat is on the tip of your tongue. It's not quite back there yet. And you're kind of like fighting through it. And especially in this particular situation, I felt like I had to be strong for my mom and stuff like that. So I was trying to really suck it up. And when it finally hit me, the idea of like, that's it, that's the end of this story. And it ended up being such a unfair story. You can't help but feel like, well, what could I have done? That's like the go-to, like if I would have known, then I would have reached out to him more often. And, one of the big struggles for me was my brother did reach out to me before he passed away. He sent me a message on Facebook and I responded, and then he sent me another one. And in dealing with my brother Ryan, it was always hard. It was always hard to sort of interact with someone who you have this like respect that is a part of you because he's my big brother, yet have so much empathy for that it hurts to interact with them. It's so hard to like talk to them because you see the struggle, you feel the struggle, and you know that there's nothing you can really do. It's like the ball is in their court, and you'll try to be encouraging or whatever. Once that doesn't work a couple times, it's just so exhausting. Particularly with my brother, when he passed away, it was drug related. He overdosed, and he had actually gotten sober right before this happened. And I definitely found myself kicking myself that I didn't take that window of him being sober to like go try to have a serious connection with him. Because we grew up together. That's my brother. We hung out all the time. He bullied me. He beat me up. He taught me how to throw a punch. He taught me about how great video games were. Even my skateboarding, which is the biggest part of my life, was introduced to me through one of his friends, Tim Kish. And Ryan, my brother, would bike while he skated. And so much of me is based off of like what I saw in him. I had to realize that if I could go back in time, I would absolutely do everything in my power to like try to get him out of it. But the situation most likely would have remained the same. Also, at that point in time, you can't beat yourself up for it because you have reasons for the things that you do at the time. Hindsight's always 20/20, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't see that. I definitely had a feeling like, my brother could go anytime on the path that he was going, but you also have this realization that your hands are tied. You can't just throw a bunch of money at them or a bunch of attention at them. I can't say anything to them. I can't introduce them to any philosopher or any poet that's gonna shake him up. All I have to do is just like hope for the best and be as positive to him as I possibly can. And though I feel like I certainly fell short of that, I still put effort into it. I can't beat myself up for not being at a level that I didn't know that I needed to be, or or possibly wouldn't have even made a difference. It's tough. It's hard to let someone go when you feel like maybe there was something I could have done. Because in actuality, and more often than not, when it comes to drugs, I know people who their family did every single thing that they could to keep them sober or keep them out of it. I know mothers who spent their entire life into their 70s and 80s trying to keep their kid clean, and their kid never grew up, just continued down that path. And I mean, we're talking everything you possibly could imagine, from sending them to rehab, spending all the money, all the love and affection that you could possibly give someone, and drugs just sucks it all up. It does, especially when it comes to opiates. And so I can't be mad at myself for not doing more. I feel like, and I cannot tell you what I would be willing to do to just like give me an hour, like give me 1 hour with him. And I am, this might sound kind of silly, but I feel very fortunate that my brother appears in my dreams a lot. Like we'll go do something and we'll hang out, and then usually like at some point in time in the dream, I'll remember that he passed away, and I'll be like, "Oh, Ryan, like you're not here anymore." And he literally in the dream will be like, "Yeah, I know, but we got right now. Like let's just enjoy this." And then usually like I wake up very emotional, but I feel so blessed that, not trying to get into any sort of like afterlife or whatever. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying that it's some sort of astral projection or something like that. But whatever it is certainly nice to get to experience. It definitely helped me through some of it. So thanks, brain or ghost realm or whatever is letting me experience that, because that's definitely calming. Another thing that I struggle with is this very selfish thing of my experiences since he's passed and wanting to share them with him. My brother, I did some hardwood floors with him. He got me a job years ago. I was definitely in between a rock and a hard place, and he can navigate that place real well. So he, not necessarily took me in, but he got me a job and showed me the ropes, and, maybe a bit of a toxic environment to be around. But that was the closest that I got to get to my brother since childhood. And I'm so thankful for that, regardless of how reckless and probably not great for my body that it was. I really got to like hang out with my brother and spend time with him and know him as a man instead of like as a big brother. And I just really wish that could have continued to now. Like, I think it would have been so rad to like fly him out to California, and like, sometimes my mind will wander in all these like fantasies of things that I could have done. But you can't, I got to cut those fantasies off before they like get too far, because that's just like beating yourself up. That's just there to hurt me. I have no problem like diving into the past and spending the nostalgic moments with times that we had. Like those highlight reels, I will play those all day long, and I will cry tears of joy that I got those moments. But what you cannot do is fantasize too much about what could have been. Kind of in any situation, not just tragedy like this, but in general, you should probably try not to spend too much time in what could be or what could have been, unless it's something that you're currently working to. And then you should be more focused on like, how do I get there, not what could be. And that was a tough habit to break early on because, you know, you're just so emotional, and dealing with serious loss feels very out of your hands on what you think about in those moments. Your brain sort of goes on autopilot and just sends you through these really rough emotional thoughts, and you just got to ride them out. You got to just like, okay, this is like it's a small world after all ride of just pure tragedy and pain, and I just got to wait it out and wait till I can get off the ride. And that sort of helped me get through it, knowing that this is just something that I'm going through. This is not like a way of existing. This is just my brain being like, man, something really bad is happening. Bah! And you know, you wait it out, and then you get off the ride, and then it's a little bit longer before you get on the ride again, and then you get off, and then the rides get shorter and shorter and shorter until you can almost decide to get off the ride whenever you want. So if it helps anyone who's going through that right now, I assure you, as cliche as it is, not only does it get a lot easier, but it gets more controllable. Now, here's one of the big ones that still gets under my skin a lot, and that's you're dealing with like a loss of a person that you really miss. You tend to want to talk about them, and let's say I'll be talking to my girlfriend or something about some memory of my brother, and it gets really frustrating because you can't transfer to that person the feelings and the smells and like the atmosphere of that time period of your life with this person. You can't describe the aura of that person. You can't describe the tension between you two in that particular situation. There's so many things lost in detail that you want to share with someone because it hurts to know that you're the only person in the world who will have this memory in that detail. And like, it's, for me, it's something that I struggle with. I want to share with someone. Like when I talk about my brother with anyone, or with my roommate who also lost his brother, and you know, we talk about how we're dealing with it. Like I want to be able to like, you know, do some Dumbledore pull the memory out of my ear and give it to him type deal. And so when I end up telling the story, I sort of discourage myself because I feel like I'm like selling my brother's life short, or that moment short, because it's been so, I don't want to say mythologized, but it's definitely lifted so much up on a pedestal in my memories because it's sacred now. It's something that could never be again. And for that reason, I don't talk about my brother anywhere near as much as I sort of meditate and think about times that I had with my brother. Talking about him usually ends up being a bittersweet experience for me, unless it's someone that knew him before he passed away. Even when talking with other people, for example, my best friend of all time was brothers with another one of my best friends. My best friends were two brothers, and that's Tim Slappich and Josh Slappich. Josh Slappich also passed away right when I moved to California. It was one of the first big losses of a close friend that I had. And then, you know, of course, not too long after, I lost my brother. And even having this similarity of we both lost our brothers, and, you know, Tim's my best friend and I knew his brother, I still never felt a connection to really tell stories about my brother, even though they were so relatable, just because I knew I could never do it justice, or at least not to the reality that I've personally have experienced it. So I would recommend, if it's, you know, in the beginning, it definitely helps soften a lot of the pain to talk about it, but try to keep your finger on the pulse of what it's actually doing for you, because if it's helping you out, by all means, keep doing it. But for me, it ended up being a little bit more bitter in the bittersweet department, so I had to kind of stop doing it. And last but not least, this is how I still sort of, this is going to sound so stupid, but continue to have a bit of a relationship with my brother. Because I don't know what the afterlife entails. I don't know if he's just in the ground and that's that, or if there's something else out there, or if he's haunting me, which would be actually kind of sick. What I do know is I do intentionally spend time thinking about times that we had, trying to remember lessons that I learned from him, trying to remember mistakes that he made so that I can learn from him, and try my hardest not to go the other way around. Try not to think about what I could have done for him, or any sort of these hypothetical situations that could have changed things that never came to pass. I definitely think a lot about our childhood and great memories, and I could fill up 1,000 hours of YouTube videos of me talking about specific things that happened with me and my brother. And maybe one day I'll tell a couple stories, but probably not. But yeah, that's just my little emotional, try not to get too into it, how I dealt with losing my brother and what it was like rant. That's the end of the video. If you liked it, then cool, you liked it. I have another channel. It's all skateboarding, or more stuff on this channel that's not skateboarding. Thanks for watching.